Hello, this is Voorhees Retro 81 and welcome to another video. This is a video response again to my good friend Gold Payne. He posted it's an earlier video of his. It's not too recent, but I found it really interesting. It was a video response to somebody else, but I'm video responding to his video response to them. And the question was, what is a horror game? How do you define a horror game? And as a horror movie nut and a horror game fan, I know I've talked quite a lot about survival horror games in my sort of my game listing rundowns. I thought that was quite an interesting question and quite a challenging question as well. So I think there are really like two strands of games that are there are games that have a horror theme, and then there are games that actually frighten you. So now, obviously, if you're there's I feel like there's two core reasons like that the horror genre in general is enjoyable to us. There's like the catharsis of, well, actually, let's make that three, actually, because I think what I'm about to say is a third separate strand. So like there's the catharsis of being in an atmosphere that you find for whatever reason disturbing, and you know, knowing that you're exposing yourself to that, and you know, you get frightened and you get creeped out and such like, but you can turn it off. I think that's a sort of psychological attraction of the horror genre overall, whether it be horror literature, books. You know, horror literature and books are exactly the same. Waffling as always. Movies, artwork, games, you know, etc. It's that there is that definite, you know, exposing yourself to something dangerous, but not exposing yourself in real life to something dangerous. That kind of adrenaline, and that taps into like enjoying being scared, I think, as well. Which is another reason that you know, the same way that somebody who really enjoys roller coasters enjoys riding a roller coaster and being pitched down what is technically what to your brain is a totally death-defying drop in like a tiny plastic and fiberglass and metal crate, but knowing that actually you're completely safe. So you know, so long as nothing, you know, unexpected goes wrong, you're not in any actual danger, but you're simulating the danger and you're getting that excitement of the danger and all that fight or flight, you know, adrenaline juice without you know, the worry that, like, you know, you're going to land dead on the floor, you know, after it all. Oh, why are you always with the missing my shots? No, you should never have come here, Catman. And the third reason is because you enjoy dark fantasy stories. And I think the reason I enjoy horror games and horror literature and movies and such like is a bit of all three. It's definitely interestingly, it's definitely to an extent the roller coaster mentality for me, because some of the movies and games I enjoy are, you know, there's not really anything particularly, you know, deep going on with them. They're just good thrill rides. And intriguingly, I hate roller coasters, and I hate, you know, inverted commas, dangerous rides and such like. I'm slightly phobic of like fireworks as well, because of like a vaguely remembered accident when I was a kid with a firework or something like that. I can't remember what really happened, but something when I was really young just like really put me off fireworks and they creep me out. So this weekend's been fun. This weekend is always a fun weekend. But it's also that I really like fantasy stories. and you know, I really like the creativeness of you know, weird, interesting creatures and such like. So like, I'm quite drawn to like sort of dark fantasy narratives and such like, and that's what a lot of horror movies are. You know, that's what you know, whether it's you know, maybe not Halloween. I feel like Halloween is maybe more of a kind of real life serial killer kind of thing, although it's not very in depth. It's more kind of like gut level thing. But in games, certainly things like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, Silent Hill, sort of niche game that I don't know how many people have played, but the game series Silvio, which is one of my favourite horror game series of late. But it's also, to a certain extent, that excitement of getting scared, but knowing that you're safe at the same time. That's something that comes to me, and also that kind of catharsis of, like, you know, feeling like you're in a dangerous place, but actually not being in one. Speaking of dangerous places, we're going to leave them to their devices. What's going on over here? Why are those vigils of Stendarr? I think they are. They look like vigils of Stendarr. We'll leave them to it. So those kind of feelings, something that gives you those feelings and those interests, I think that would definitely define a horror game. But also something that has horror themes. I'm quite a big fan of like horror themed things, as well as, you know, out and out horror. Like I've always been a big fan of the band White Zombie, and after it Rob Zombie, other bands along the same lines, like I mean, I think you know, like early Slipknot I would kind of put into this bracket, as well as having like creepy, weird, like horror themes to their things. I was never that big on like Cradle of Filth or the Misfits, but you know, those kind of bands kind of they definitely appeal to me, bands that have like the sort of horror themes to them. And again, games that have horror themes, even though they're not like frightening games, like Castlevania, Monster Bash that I put up on the channel recently. I would say also like the Aliens games, because none of those are really frightening aside from Isolation, but they're all sort of themed games. Alien Breed, trying to think of other ones, for a deep cut, Ken Sadin on the Master System, Shadow the Beast. Those kind of games appeal to me. You know, on the face of it, you know, on the face of it, they're like horror themed games, but they're not frightening or anything. They're just like, you know, they're just platform. Altered Beast is another one that's a big game for me. You know, they're just you know, standard game types, but they've got like horror themed monster, you know, enemies and you know, darker looks and such like. I really dig those kind of games. And I do play quite a lot of horror games, but I haven't been uploading them to the channel because I'm still relatively new to this YouTube game, and I'm not entirely sure what you can and can't upload in terms of like, you know, games that are violent and whatever. I've been debating doing video of Zombie Army Trilogy, which is one of my favourite PC games like ever, but because it's kind of it's really grim, and I just kind of like, I'm not sure. I was reading up on it, and I think I could probably do it and there wouldn't be any trouble, but you know what it's like. You know, I'm such a small channel, I don't think anybody would care. But you know, there's that side of things with like blood and guts and violence and dark themes and such. Like, I'm not sure where YouTube cuts off and goes like, oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you about that. But also, a lot of these games are quite slow and quite, you know, not a lot happens for a long period of time, and then something really creepy kicks off. Like, I've thought about doing video of Amnesia, But Amnesia takes about 15 to 20 minutes, like, to actually get going, and it probably takes about an hour before you even see a monster or get chased by anything, and that's really good for in terms of like the game's like tension build up and such like. But it's not so good for trying to make a 10-minute video to show other people like, oh, this game is really good and you should play this game because it's really fun, and if you get a chance to have a go at it, when, like, you know, shooting 10 minutes of the game would just be me wandering around carrying boxes and throwing chairs at something, and, you know, just rambling to myself. So I haven't had as much horror content up as maybe I don't know whether I don't really, it doesn't really bother me that I haven't had a lot up, but at the same time, from that point of view, my channel content isn't necessarily indicative of like my overall gaming interests, so maybe that would be something, you know, if people are interested, maybe I'll upload some more of that. I could certainly upload more sort of like horror themed, like Metroidvanias and such like, for sure, because I've got a few of those knocking around, so I don't know if, you know, that's definitely something, if you're interested, just drop me a line and I can just start, you know, poking towards that as maybe something to put up. Let me know if that's something you're interested in, because, you know, if people are interested in seeing certain things that they note from what I'm rambling about, I'm always happy to, you know, if I can, accommodate that with a bit of video. Anyhow, so that's my kind of thoughts on it. There's definitely, like, there are games that frighten you, and there are games that put you in that horror kind of phase, and they're horror games. But I would argue also that games that are you know, they aren't about creating a horror experience. They're just, you know, standard video game types, but they have horror themes, like, you know, your Castlevanias, your Altered Beasts, your night slashers, you know, whatever. One genre, you know, as a you know, 2D shooter person, I can't think of a lot of 2D shooters that have horror themes, and I think that's a kind of like unmined area of potential, really. The only ones I can think of off the top of my head are Splatterhouse. That's a good not it's not a 2D shooter, but that's a good game with a horror theme that's, you know, not necessarily a scary game. But the only 2D shooters I can think of off the top of my head that have like really, you know, intrinsic horror themes are X-Multiply and Gynook, or Wings of War if you live in the States. Those are pretty cool, like, horror themed 2D shooters. But yeah, it seems like an unmined potential to me, but it is what it is. Anyhow, I hope that was interesting, and it's an interesting topic. Thank you very much, Gull, and take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Peace out.